Good evening. My name is Rebecca Kramer. I am a management analyst with the Office of the City Manager. I'd like to welcome all of you that are here in attendance with us this evening, as well as those that are joining via our YouTube channel. We welcome you for the chat with the City Manager, Armando Villa. And joining the City Manager this evening is our Director of Public Works, Nick Fidler, for a look at the Public Works infrastructure and capital improvement projects that we have in the pipeline. So we're excited to have you joining us for the presentation. Once our presentation is concluded, there will be time for question and answers. Those that are joining us via YouTube can leave questions in the comments section. Before we get started, I'd like to have our executive team take a moment to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Regina Funderburg. I am the Chief Financial Officer here at the City of Menifee. We are actually a team of 15 responsible for managing the city's finances. That includes revenue, payments, purchasing, grants, budgets, capital assets, cash and investments. Thank you.
Good evening. Kayla Charters with the Economic Development Department. Our department is responsible for business attraction, business retention, and job creation in the city. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl Kitzrow. I'm the Community Development Director, and I oversee the planning and building departments here in the city.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Rossi, and I'm the acting city clerk. Our department is a support department. We also assist in the elections and records keeping and FPPC compliance.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Nix. I'm the Community Services Director for the City of Menifee. I oversee parks, recreation, events, programs, and also solid waste and recycling services and maintenance of all the landscaping and facilities in the city.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Ron Puccinell. I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for the city. My department oversees everything that nobody ever sees, all the computers, all the phones. At least they don't notice them until they don't work. As I like to say, if it has an on switch and it doesn't work, everybody yells at me. But we also support all the innovation that is happening across the city. There'll be some things you'll hear about tonight and in other presentations. Really exciting things happening here. Glad to be part of the team.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Gutierrez, and I'm a police captain with the Menifee Police Department. And as you know, we're responsible for public safety within the city of Menifee.
Nick, would you like to introduce yourself as well before we get started?
Yes, good evening. I'm Nick Fidler, Public Works Director. I will be presenting to you this evening, so I will get into deep details on my department as we proceed through the evening.
And before I turn the time over to the City Manager and Nick, I do want to acknowledge our communications and IT staff that make this evening's presentation possible. Mandy Stevens, Brianna Barunda, Phil Southard, and Jonathan Oaxaca. We really appreciate all of the effort and time they put in to making these events possible. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to our City Manager, Armando Villa.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Department Directors, for being here, and welcome to the audience here today, and also for those of you that are joining us today via Facebook Live and YouTube. So we have a very, very good presentation today about infrastructure, public works, CIP. A lot of terminology. You're going to get to hear what that means, right? Since 2016, 17, 18, 19, as the city continues to grow, one of the primary questions that everybody's asking me, what is the city doing about traffic, right? Because traffic continues to grow. That's the number one question that everybody asks me when I go to functions. And I tell them, we have a very aggressive CIP, and I start naming all the acronyms that they don't understand. So what we're doing here today is we're trying to let the public know and the audience know all the things that we're doing to make sure that we don't fall behind with traffic, we don't fall behind with public amenities and infrastructure. Since 2017, We started programming and developing plans for making sure that we have a programmatic schedule of all the things that we needed to do in the city as the city continues to grow. Things like freeway interchanges, things like street improvements, things like sidewalks, traffic signals, park improvements, bathrooms in parks, and things like that. So we put them all in a book, and we make an assessment citywide. We go everywhere, and then we also have public meetings with the public to ask them what else do we need here that we need to include in our capital improvement plan. That's the acronym, what the acronym means, CIP. And so we developed this book. If you haven't seen it, I'll be happy to share it with you today. And also, if you are watching on Facebook Live, you can go to our website and download it. It's a very interesting, comprehensive book of all the improvements that we need to make over the next. We call it a 5-year plan, but in essence, is a sort of a plan of all the programs that we have to implement over the next 5 years. This represents roughly about $500,000 worth of construction that we have to do over the next 5 years. And obviously, we don't have all the money today. We don't have all the money in 1 year, but we program over time. Every year, we spend roughly about $25 to $30 million of city money building roads, infrastructure, and things like that. We also rely on state money and federal money and regional money to be able to leverage that money so that we can pool with our city money to make projects happen. We also work on very, very large, and I mean large projects, like the Newport Interchange here. You guys remember, it cost us a lot of money. I think it was over $40–50 million of local, state, and federal funding. We, in the past couple of years, constructed Scott Road Interchange. That was roughly about $60 million. So it's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money that we found the need to, pool monies with our federal, state, and local and regional agencies. And also we have, so this book represents a program that outlines all these things that we need. Over the last couple of years, we realized that not too many people know this. Right? So one of the things that we are trying to do is we're trying to have more workshops with our city council, and we are publicizing more and more that this is, if you want something done in the city, come to one of the workshops and let that project that you want get into this book, because if it's in this book, we will build it. Maybe not next year, but it will be scheduled to be built over time. So that's how we build public infrastructure in our city. So with that, I know it's a long introduction, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that even this year, the beginning of this year, we've had 3 meetings already with our city council, where in March we went back and amended this book and included more projects because we had a little more money that came in and included more funding for more projects. And then over the last couple of months in April, we had 2 workshops with the city council where the council was weighing in how many more projects should be included in this book for funding for next year. And the council did a really good job of helping us prioritize some of the projects that needed to be included for next fiscal year. And that CIP plan for next year will be coming to city council on June 14th, our city council meeting, right? 15th, June 15th. So with that, I'm going to introduce our Public Works Director. He is in charge of implementing the CIP, and he's going to give us an overview of all the projects that are in the works and projects that are currently under construction, in design, and then some of the projects that we hope to include in our next fiscal year proposal to the council for adoption here in June. So Nick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Armando. I appreciate the introduction and the deep dive into the capital improvement program. First off, I'm going to take you back a little bit and explain what our department oversees and performs within the city. The Public Works Department is broken up into three main divisions. We have our land development engineering, our Public Works operation and maintenance, and our capital improvement program. I'd like to acknowledge two of my staff that are here. Daniel Padilla, who is our Deputy Public Works Director. He oversees our land development engineering. And then Carlos Geronimo, who oversees our capital improvement program division. And Carlos, his division is the one responsible for putting together the capital improvement program. A little background or the goals for the Public Works Department. Oop, I didn't mean to, oh, sorry. It shifted on me. The goals for the Public Works Department is to provide quality services that support the infrastructure demands of the city and to enhance the safety and quality of life residents, businesses, and visitors deserve. So the Capital Improvement Program Division, and we'll get into a much deeper dive with them in a bit. The project planning and program development updates, again, talking about the Capital Improvement Program 5-year plan. We have a pavement management program where we go through and evaluate the streets on an annual basis and determine whether or not, what types of techniques that we need to do to keep our pavement management updated. We also have an active transportation plan that is geared around pedestrian and bicycle activity within the city, and then local roadway safety plan, which we look at where there's high incident accident rates within local streets, and that develops course or plans or projects that we can implement into the CIP to address those issues. And then lastly, we're working towards a complete streets plan. And a complete streets plan is kind of taking all different modes of transportation and then applying them throughout the city, whether it's pedestrians, bicycles, buses, cars, scooters, whatever the new trend is at that time. And then we're moving into the development and implementation of public improvements. As Armando has mentioned, we oversee fairly large projects, infrastructure projects. For instance, right now we're working on McCall Boulevard interchange widening at I-215. We're in the design phase, or the PA and ED phase of that project, which is project approval and environmental documents. And we're also looking at Garbani Road and I-215 interchange. We're at the very preliminary phases of planning for a new interchange at that location. In addition to that, we look at transportation projects, which would be minor widenings on roadways, or even major widenings on roadways. We're looking at Valley Boulevard, widening that and including some missing links along that corridor to widen it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And then on McCall Road, or McCall Boulevard, from Oakhurst to Menifee, increasing that from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Those are some of our larger widening projects. And then obviously we do a lot of traffic signals each year through the CIP. We do drainage projects that help facilitate development through our community, and then also correct drainage issues that are occurring in some of our surrounding communities. And then city facilities, that's a big topic right now. We're looking at several large city facility projects, a new city hall, a new police department building, and a new maintenance operations center. Those are 3 large projects that we're looking on. And on top of that, we also have a community recreation center that we're proposing in the near future. And then we have parks and recreational facilities that are part of the 5-year capital improvement program. And in order to make all this happen, Armando kind of touched on it, we do have to find the funding for all these projects. So we work through various funding sources, whether they're state, federal, or local funding needs. There's a significant amount of money that is available through both state and federal. Every time we get a notice of a grant, the Capital Improvement Program Division applies for grants where they meet warrants for those projects. So we're constantly putting in applications for applying for grants. Active transportation program, that's an biannual grant program that we work towards, and every 2 years we go in and apply for various active transportation projects. That can include like safe routes to school or ADA access improvements through communities. And then our SB1 Road Maintenance and Repair Act, that's basically the new gas tax that was approved a couple years ago. So the city gets allocated a certain amount of funding each year through that SB1 gas tax measure, and then we apply that to our roadways to do maintenance projects. And then community development block grants, those are again federal fundings through HUD that we apply through various projects to improve streets and neighborhoods in disadvantaged communities, to bring in sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and drainage and pavement projects. So there's a lot of activity that we're constantly doing to try to work through our 5-year CIP and augment some of the our local funding sources to further, to leverage some of our local dollars. So jumping into the 5-year capital improvement program, we have, I feel like I skipped a few slides here. Let me back up. I might have clicked, nope. Sorry, some of the slides got skipped. So moving into fiscal year 21-22, these are projects that we're currently working on that are active at this fiscal year. Our current fiscal year goes from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. So during this fiscal year, these are the projects that we've completed. We've completed 13 projects to date worth $11 million. I won't read through each one of the projects on that list, but you can see we've covered 5 major categories within that program that reaches the 11.1 million. And when I talk about categories, we have traffic signals, street improvement, pavement management program, public facilities, and then parks, trails, and recreation. One of the major parks, trails, recreation projects that we just completed was the Paloma Wash Trail, which is right out here parallel to Holland from Newport all the way down to Holland Road. We went through and resurfaced that the trail and added solar lighting along that facility. And then again, another project that we will be having a ribbon cutting very shortly for is the Lazy Creek campus improvements, which is adding a new community center, and then we reconstructed the parking lot and rehabilitated the existing community center. So it's a major renovation of that facility that turned out very nice, and it'll be able to support the kids of our community during summer camps and other training activities. So projects that we're currently in design with, there's a long list of these projects. What you see at the very top is the Holland Road Overpass. We've been working on that project for several years now. It is coming to a very near end of design and moving into the construction phase. We are hoping to get that out to bid here in the next month or so. We have the designs are complete. We're just waiting for environmental approval. We anticipate receiving our last final permits within the next few weeks, and then once we get those permits, we'll be able to advertise that project for construction and then be into construction in August of this year or early September. So that's a major project that we're working on. And then this is continuation again of all the projects that we're working through currently. Give you a second to look at those. So these are projects that we're currently under construction with. You can see that we have 4 traffic signals that are in one phase of construction. These projects unfortunately were delayed a little bit due to COVID. I know everybody's tired of hearing due to COVID, but we've had a significant delay in receiving the poles for and equipment for that project. In the past, it would take us typically 16 weeks. We're well over 22 weeks before receiving those, and they're still anticipated. So the projects were delayed a little bit, so we're now looking at an October completion for most of them, and then November for the Murrieta Road and Rouse Road traffic signal. We are initiating the Normandy Road pedestrian improvements, which is a minor widening of Normandy Road through the Salt Creek Channel, and this was to add additional multi-use path on the north side of Normandy to connect the two communities that are separated by the Salt Creek Channel. And then the Peacock Community Resurfacing, that project is basically complete. We're just working through the punch list items for that project. Tradeswinds Community Resurfacing, that one is gearing up to start very shortly. We've already issued the contracts to the contractor, and he's just working through all of his submittal documents. Potomac and Meadows neighborhood resurfacing, some of that work initiated this week. They started doing some of the pre-crack filling process that will go in before the resurfacing occurs. So the crack filling will occur over the next few weeks, and then the crack fill has to cure for a bit, and then they'll come back in probably August to do the resurfacing of that area. Evans Park Pump Track, that project was just recently initiated. There was a groundbreaking ceremony a couple weeks ago. The contractor is starting to move into that area, and some of the import has started to occur. And then Sports Court resurfacing also has been awarded. So just to recap on what we are doing in our capital improvement program for the 21-22 fiscal year, we've completed 13 projects, 1 traffic signal, 3 street improvements, 3 PMP, pavement management program projects, 2 public facilities, and 4 parks and trails recreation projects. And then projects in design, we have 30. 9 of them are transportation projects, 1 traffic signal, 6 street improvement projects, and 4 pavement management program projects, 6 public facilities, and then 4 parks, trails, and recreation projects. And like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, we have 10 projects under construction. We walked through that list. So a lot of work activity going on in our capital improvement program. So now moving into the fiscal year 2022-23 projects. These are what have been proposed to the City Council for approval. So looking through the proposal, we again are adding funding to the Holland Road Overpass. These are some funds to help complete that project. We have the Bradley Road Bridge over Salt Creek. That project will be moving into construction very shortly. We did receive notice that we're receiving $5 million of additional federal funds. So we're now putting together or preparing NEPA documents so that we can utilize the federal funds. And once those NEPA documents are complete, we will advertise that project for construction. The Valley Boulevard widening and missing links is again adding additional funding to that project. It's a multi-year project. We have to design and then secure right-of-way. There's 2 major missing links along that corridor that we have to acquire the right-of-way for. And then once we acquire the right-of-way, we'll move into the construction phase. So it's a multi-year phase project. So the additional funds here are for design purposes. And McCall Boulevard widening, again, that's another large project, a little bit smaller than the Valley Boulevard project, but we do have the right-of-way necessary for that project. So we're currently in design. We anticipate this funding will help us move into construction. Bailey Park Boulevard widening, again, is adding money to that project. We are currently in design for the widening and improvements on Bradley Boulevard, but this is just to add funding for the construction. The Marietta Bridge over Salt Creek, this will be very similar to the Holland Road bridge overcrossing. We're starting the design and environmental process for that project. As you recall from the Bradley Bridge project, this is a multi-year project. It takes a lot of time to get through the design and environmental, with it being adjacent to or over the Salt Creek, or the Salt Creek Channel. So this is adding money for those design and environmental purposes. Getz Road Vista Way traffic signal. This is again for design. We are coordinating that project with a Southern Cal Edison Rule 20A project, where they will come in and underground the existing overhead electrical facilities. So we're providing the design so they can coordinate relocating their facilities to underground, and then we'll move into construction the following year. Menifee Road Fire Station 76 entrance traffic signal. The fire station is offset of Menifee Road, and it has a connector street that is connected. As traffic has continued to increase, it's becoming more difficult for the fire trucks to get out of that station and onto Menifee Road. So the traffic signal will function as a serving just the fire trucks so that they can get out, stop traffic on Menifee Road so they can safely exit the station and get onto into the roadway. Normandy Road pedestrian improvements is again a continuation of the Normandy Road widening project that I spoke of earlier. It's just adding additional funding to that project so we can complete that. And then ATP is an active transportation program, Romoland grid area. That's to come in and add sidewalk improvements and ADA access ramps throughout that community. Bradley Road widening near Paloma High School northern entrance. We're actually widening on the east side of the roadway adjacent to that area. This is funding that came from the developers that are just north of the high school. So we're constructing a small segment of sidewalk that would connect that community to the high schools. It's more like a safe routes to school project, but it is funded through that development. Moving into our pavement maintenance program, we have several resurfacing projects that we're working through. The first set of 3 are for a slurry seal program. That's a maintenance effort that we apply to roads that are in relatively good condition, that it helps extends the life of the pavement. And then we're also implementing a new program for an on-call resurfacing program. We do a lot of pavement repairs in-house, but it's very limited to our abilities are very limited on what size repairs that we can do. So when we identify larger areas that are outside of our ability that need immediate repairs, we'll use this on-call resurfacing projects account to bring in a contractor and make quick repairs in lieu of waiting for the next capital improvement program cycle. And then Romoland Grid Neighborhood South. This is again a community that we're going to be looking to do a resurfacing project, and that's the construction of. It's currently in design now. Willows neighborhood, this is near Menifee Lakes. That will go through design and construction. The Casablanca community, which is south of McCall and east of Sherman, will go through design and construction this next fiscal year. And then Marietta Road resurfacing, Salt Creek to San Quentin. That project is being coordinated with the current EMWD's project, which they are installing the new water main down Marietta Road. Once they complete the section beyond that, we anticipate to be we're currently in design for that project, but this is for construction. Once they complete the improvements, we'll step in right behind them and reconstruct that roadway. And then we're going to do a pilot program in our street lighting section. Quell Valley grid area streetlights. Solar street lighting has made significant improvements over the past few years. The Romoland grid area is doesn't have ultimate infrastructure, so allowing us to use the solar street lights, we can go in and place them at intersections and conflicting points of vehicle conflict points. So we'll utilize that new technology through that area. The Quell Valley Fire Station number 5, this is a new fire station. This is again adding additional funding to that project. We anticipate that will be going into construction very soon. Designs are complete. We've already hired a construction management firm, and we are just finalizing those design documents and building our bidding specs for that project. New Menifee City Hall. We're placing funding in reserve for that project. We are currently working through a needs assessment program to determine how much space we need and how to best occupy the building, and then we will start working to a design in the very near future. Community Center and Recreation Center. Again, this is adding reserve funding for a community center. Our community services department has been working with the county and has identified a site that the county has, and we're working through acquiring that site. The Evan Parks design and construction, a continuation of some of the improvements that are happening out there now. We're going to continue to build out that park site. And then a park amenity enhancements. This is at various locations. Will be Community Services Department will be doing enhancements. And then parking lot resurfacing and a trash enclosure at L. Peterson Park that's going to go through and reconstruct some of the parking lot and add trash enclosures. And then fence and safety enhancements at various parks. So that completes our capital improvement program, and as Armando has mentioned, we are in the process of submitting that to the council. We were hoping to take it to council next week to the council for a public hearing, but unfortunately we're still working through the documents for that project, so we anticipate taking that back to the council on June 15th. One thing I did want to go kind of step back, I indicated this a little bit earlier, but just to give you an overview of the department, unfortunately some of my slides didn't get included, but I know we talked a lot about capital improvement, but we do also provide quite a bit of maintenance in-house. We do have a maintenance operations center where our staff works through street maintenance, filling potholes, repairing traffic signs, repairing signs, striping. We do graffiti, weed abatement. There's a host of other services that we provide to make sure that we're maintaining the city's infrastructure outside of the capital improvement program. In addition, our department oversees the construction and development of all the land development and capital improvement projects. We have an in-house construction inspection team that oversees all the private development tracks that are being built, and then our land engineering side processes all the construction documents for that land development. So we have a lot of other elements in the Public Works Department outside of the capital improvement program. And at that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Well, thank you, Nick. That was a really, really good presentation, and I said earlier that all that stuff is in this book, right? And one thing engineers do is that they build multi-million-dollar bridges and super complicated projects, but they don't do a good job of simplifying things. This book here is a very easy way to find out what's happening in your city. Like I said earlier, there's over $500 million worth of things that we need to do, and obviously we don't have all the money in 1 year. Just to give you a point of reference, our city budget is $100 million. It's for everything that we do, to pay for our cops, to pay for our city staff, to pay for all the things that we do, to pay for the insurance, the electric bill. Even if we spend everything we have, it would take us 5 years to implement this plan. Obviously, we can't spend all the money. We try to budget roughly about $25 million every year, and we try to take advantage of some federal programs and state programs to build things. But also the other challenge is the resources. We don't have enough resources to be able to go build everything out there now. And then with the pandemic, like Nick mentioned, we're having a really difficult time finding material to build stuff. You know, everything's very expensive. When we take the time to design something and go out to bid, by the time those bids come back, they're super expensive because everything is very expensive, and we have to go back to the drawing board because our estimates were not accurate. So that's kind of putting a little bit of a bump in the way we do things. But ultimately, I wanted to make sure that we reassure the public and you that we are paying attention to the surrounding environments. You know, I take a drive every 2 weeks. I drive through all the city, and I notice all the things that we need to do and the things that we are doing. And just last week, I noticed driving around the northeast part of our city, and we've done a lot of public improvements. A lot of the streets have been repaved, restriped, and some traffic signals have been installed. So we are getting ahead of it, but we still have a lot to do. So one of the things that I also wanted to make sure you understand is patience. You know, we will get to everything, but we need, you know, resources, time, and money, and we will get to it. Another thing I wanted to make sure that you understood, and for the public out there, is that, you know, there may be things that are not in this book here that we may not be aware of. And the only way for you guys to let us know is to, you know, send us a letter, give us a call, and give Nick a call. And then when we have meetings with our city council, come to the workshop, come to those meetings and express your concerns to the city council so that the city council knows that you need things in your neighborhood. Because there's a lot of things that we miss. Honestly, with the long list of things that we need to do, sometimes we miss smaller things. You'd be surprised how many signs are stolen every week. You know, our crew is very busy making sure that we go out there and look at all the stop signs and street names famous for getting stolen, and sometimes we don't get to those things and they become a problem. So let us know when those things happen so we can go correct them. So now, I'll shut up and I'll let you guys ask us some questions if you have any. And I know that we have questions from the audience on online. So with that, Rebecca, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, if we have anybody that's here with us in person do you have any questions? You do? Yeah.
I was wondering about the half-built stores or whatever they are. We've only been here a year, so we're still learning the city, but the buildings in the shopping center that are apparently halfway built, are they going to get torn down or?
So let me try to answer that. We have roughly about 500 projects that are being built in our city. And you know how many times we get judged by those 2 projects? We, the city does not get involved in private development like that. What we do get involved in is the permitting and the inspection of those projects. These 2 projects were started back in 2018, and one of them had a really bad developer that mismanaged the project, and all of a sudden the bank pulled the funding from them. That is what was to be called the Smart and Final building. So it still sits there. My understanding is that the bank has solved all the legal problems, and there's a new buyer for the site, and they're trying to submit plans and get them finalized for the ultimate construction of a restaurant and the ultimate construction of a facility there where the old Smart and Final building was to sit. And one thing is although that's not going to be a Smart and Final representatives want to be in Menifee, and they're talking to us about finding them an alternate location. that we do, is we find them locations for them to build. The movie theater, we've heard many times, and we even had the representative from the movie theater come to our city council to let us know what was going on, right? And the reasons are very legitimate. The pandemic really hurt the movie industry, not only from the ability for people to go to the movies and sit in one confined space, we couldn't do that. And also the ability of Hollywood to make movies. They weren't making enough movies, so there was no movies to show and no place to show them at. So that happened for about a year and a half, 2 years. The banks get really, really crazy when it comes to lending money to things that are not happening. So that's the problems they're having. They're still having a difficult time finalizing the funding to finalize the building. However, the owner is telling us that he still intends to build the theater soon as the COVID restrictions begin to fade away. So that's what we heard from them. Yes, sir. Can you please speak into the mic?
Given all the restraints and challenges that you face, everywhere I drive, they're building another 100 houses, and I know what the congestion is from living here for a short period of time. With all that new construction, can you keep up with the capital outlay projects needed to support the additional homes? And I'm looking at water, I'm looking at traffic, I'm looking at just livability. You know, if it takes 20 minutes to get across the road here, how long before we get that relief? Are they going to beat us with the construction being done and then not being gridlock? That's my concern.
And I'll help answer that question because as part of development, we do require improvements not only adjacent to their facilities, but around the city. There are mitigation measures that they have to include in some of the larger developments, such as traffic signals, widening roadways, and they also pay towards developer impact fees, which would go to transportation circulation elements. So we do need the developers to come in and provide for some of that infrastructure. As you're aware, when they do build, they build their half of the roadway adjacent to theirs, and then we also have them mitigate some of their traffic impacts through what we call a traffic impact analysis. So when they're going through their entitlement phase for that development, we do review some of the traffic studies that were performed and analyze it to see what kind of impacts that they are going to have on the existing network, road network, and we utilize that information to add projects to their facility or to their development. And then, like I said, also they're required to pay developer impact fees, which helps improve some of those larger projects like the McCall Boulevard interchange widening or the Garbani Road interchange project. Those developer impact fees go to support the construction of those major projects, and even going back to the Valley Boulevard widening project or the McCall Boulevard widening from Oakhurst to Menifee. So it's a catch-22. The developers do come in and they add additional traffic, but they are also making improvements to the local roadway networks around them, and then paying for additional fees to offset regional improvements to the community. So yes, we are looking at that, and that's how we try to get ahead of the need, is by utilizing those fees and requiring those different mitigation requirements.
So let me add to that, because I know it's not just necessarily a city problem, or a city issue, it's a regional issue. The entire region here is growing, right? So what we're doing is we're doing our part in our city to make sure that we mitigate the traffic impacts, the service needs impacts, because it's not just traffic, it's parks, public facilities, more policing, more public parks and public services. When we review a project, our planning department does a really good job of assessing all the needs for that development, including parks, including roads, including mitigation fees. So we're doing our part to mitigate that, and we have a pretty good handle on it. We have a really good team that looks at that at every project. And one of the things that we are also doing is we're also monitoring what the county and other cities are doing in their city that are going to impact our city. And we're making sure that we're at the table, making sure that they're mitigating those impacts in our city. County here on the east side of our city towards Hemet, they're building a lot. And we're monitoring what they're doing to make sure that the impacts is mitigated. So a lot of the traffic is homegrown, but a lot of the traffic is pass-by traffic, people that come from Lake Elsinore, they want to go to Hemet, people that are coming from Moreno Valley, they want to go to Temecula, they pass through our town. It's sort of a double-edged sword. You know, it's good that they visit our town and spend money in our town, but it's kind of a bad thing that they cause more traffic congestion. So it's like Dick said, it's a catch-22. But from a planning and project mitigation perspective, we have a good handle on them. And this plan here is laced with a whole bunch of projects that are going to help us mitigate the larger scale problems like traffic. One of the things that we have been planning for, and unfortunately I hope we could have been further along, is the Holland Road Overpass. That Holland Road Overpass will alleviate traffic on Newport and Scott. Because those people that live in town, they want to get to the other side of the freeway. They're not going to use Newport. They're going to go on Holland Road because it's only going to be, an overpass. So we will start building that here in late August, early September, and hopefully we'll deliver that project in 18 months. And like that one, we have the McCall Road Widening project and the future Garbani interchange. So we have a good handle on what we need to do. And but it's a difficult balance to make sure that that we balance those needs.
Water's a statewide issue. I don't know if we get to interact with the state or not, but I spent 33 years working for the state. They haven't done a whole lot to take care of our water. Yeah. It's going to impact all of us.
We only have 15 more minutes to talk about that, and I could spend 2 hours talking to you about that. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Brown. I live on Pleasant Valley Road, which my direct cross street is Holland. And I have some serious concerns with Holland. I've been there since 1988, so I saw when everything was a dirt road. I still have a dirt road, but when I turn onto Holland, I'm taking my life into my hands because it's a straightaway from Bradley Cross Street down to Hahn Road. And I mean a straightaway. And the traffic to the high school is significant certain hours of the day, but there's no stop between Bradley and Hahn Road. And like I say, it's a straightaway, and it's very, very dangerous. And you're doing the overpass, which is going to impact even more that area. Right now, it's hard for me to even turn off of my street. So I don't know what the easy answer is, but it would be really nice if there was a stop or a light somewhere along in there, maybe halfway. It might slow the traffic down a little bit, but it's been an issue for a long time, and the overpass scares me to death because it's just going to get worse. Thank you.
Yeah, I can add a little bit of comments. I'm not 100% familiar with Pleasant Valley Road, but we do have some development that is occurring to the west of Bradley on Holland. It's called Quartz Ranch. They were required to make mitigation measures, so they are adding a few traffic signals. I don't think it's within this area, but again, they were also required to pay some mitigation fees, and we do have part of that fees. We were looking to go in and widen some of the segments that are narrower along Holland Road, but when we also look at that, we will look at traffic control devices such as stop signs or traffic signals. But again, we have to perform traffic studies to make sure that those intersections meet warrants. So there's several warrant program that we work through, the highway design manual and the manual of uniform traffic control devices and the California Vehicle Code that we abide by. But we'll definitely look into it as we continue those projects.
Thank you, Mayor, for those comments. If we can get your phone number or email address, we can definitely spend more time with you and email you some of the results of our research. Thank you, Mayor.
So we had received a couple questions from our viewing audience. So we'll start with a couple questions that pertain to public works, since that's what we're talking specifically about tonight. There was an inquiry on whether or not sidewalks could be added and what the process is along Murrieta Road between Wickard and Garbani to address the needs of that community and students at the nearby schools, in the middle school and high school. So Nick, maybe you could speak to the process.
Yeah, thank you. Again, as I'd earlier mentioned, we have an active transportation program that we work through that identifies various walkways that are needed throughout the city, and typically we apply for grants on I think it's a biannual basis that we do that, and we look at, we work with the school districts to identify where their needs are for heavy pedestrian traffic, and then we rank them with the help of the school districts for those funding. So we can definitely look at that location to identify the needs and then move that through that program process.
Rebecca, do we have a contact information for that person? Maybe we can respond to them once we have results of our research.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, and we'd received another inquiry in terms of the patchwork that had been done on Murrieta Road between Ridgemore Road and Park City Avenue, wanting to know when that project will be completed and the full improvements.
So we have been working with EMWD, as you're aware. That is a EMWD project. They have received an encroachment permit from the city to perform that work. They have been recently making repairs. I think as of this Monday, they went out and redid Park City at Murrieta because they had a water line that did break in that area and that caused damage to that intersection. So they completely rebuilt the east half of that intersection. And they do have their trench patch that is going parallel along Murrieta. However, they continue to work in that area, putting in various appurtenances through that pipeline. We have requested that they go through in the meantime and do a profilograph or a micro grind on that surface because it is quite bumpy until they do come in and put their ultimate pavement. Right now it's what we call a base pave. It's where they just come in and do a pavement patch for the trench until they come back and do their ultimate capping surface. But on top of that, the city does have a project that will be coming later this summer that will resurface that entire stretch. As I mentioned before, we do have a capital improvement program project that will resurface Murrieta Road from just north of Salt Creek and then go all the way down to San Quentin, which is just south of Newport, covering a majority of what their project covers. So we have been working with them. We have been asking them to make improvements. At one of my last workshops, we had a complaint in regards to the striping out there. We asked them, and within 2 days, they had the striping repaired out in that area. So they are responsive. We're working with them to make those improvements. Just like I mentioned, they went through and repaired the intersection just this week.
Thank you, Nick. So we'd had another question that pertains to development, which we will have Cheryl Kitzero, our Director of Community Development, respond to. The inquiry was a request for an update on the construction that's going to start on Encanto in the big field where grading is taking place, and a request for information about whether or not there would be a control for the dust from the grading that will result from that project.
Thank you, Rebecca. I believe the project that the question is referring to is called the Legato Project. It is one of our newest master plan communities that was approved in 2020. It will ultimately be developed with commercial along the project frontage of Encanto, 1,000 single-family homes, a community park, and 2 neighborhood parks. The construction activity for grading has started. The developer anticipates it will be completed later this fall. There are requirements that the dust from the site will need to be watered, so to ensure that there are minimal impacts as the resident is asking about the dust coming off the site. The developer will also be constructing their roadway improvements, and we, based on their schedule, anticipate some model homes there this time next year.
Thank you, Cheryl. We'd received a question for our Community Services Department as well. The inquiry was, what is the city doing to ensure that our park restrooms are clean, and who can they contact if there's a problem?
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, we're cleaning and checking the restrooms daily. They are cleaned and checked in the morning, so and if they're used heavily by the afternoon, there might be a little more maintenance that's done out there. But if anyone sees an issue with any of our park restrooms, you can download the city app. On the city app, you can go to report an issue, and you can set up a profile or not. I will not do it this time. Ron, help me out. And then you go to Parks and Recreation, and then on here you can report a maintenance issue and just let us know if there's any restrooms that need any extra attention.
Thank you, Jonathan. For our police department, which I will refer to Captain Gutierrez, who's with us this evening, there was an inquiry is what's the city doing to address the homeless in our community?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. City staff and the police department remain committed to dealing with the unique challenges of homelessness. As you know, it's not a crime to be homeless. One thing that I will say is we participated in the point in time count in January, and we have 28 confirmed homeless, unsheltered individuals within the city of Menifee that were counted at that time in January. And that number is relatively low compared to the region itself, which is a good thing. And I think that's attributed to a lot of hard work by a lot of people. It's not unique to Menifee. It's a statewide, it's a national, problem, homelessness. We do have several resources that we utilize. We have a homeless liaison officer that works full-time with the homeless. That's all she does. We also work with the Riverside University Health System. We have 2 folks from Hope that connect individuals with resources, emergency shelters. They sometimes find permanent shelters for them and just connect them to a wide variety of other resources. I feel absolutely confident that the individuals that want help, they're getting help. The struggle is a lot of times the individuals that don't want help and they're the criminal element. We still offer them resources and do as much as we can for them, and we'll continue to do that. But at some point, sometimes we do have to revert to enforcement, which isn't a permanent solution. But sometimes that will motivate them to accept the resources and find long-term solutions. So the city's doing a lot to make sure that we don't encounter some of the similar issues that other jurisdictions have.
Thank you, Captain. So that concludes the questions that we've received by our viewing audience remotely. Are there any other questions that we have from those that are with us here in person this evening? And if not, we are at the conclusion of our hour. We appreciate everybody that joined us and our staff members that were here. And I do want to remind you that the next Chat with the City Manager, we are going to be going on the road. It will be on Wednesday, June 29th in the morning. So we'll be holding this one at 10 a.m. It will be at St. Vincent Church, located at 27931 Murrieta Road in Menifee. And that information will, of course, be posted online. We'll be sharing it via our social media accounts as well. So we hope that you will join us or join us remotely if you can't come in person. So thank you. And Armando, did you have?
I wonder what the subject is for the next meeting.
Oh, very good question. Thank you. We are going to be spending the hour with our Chief of Police for an update with the police department having been in operation for 2 years now. So it will be great to hear from Chief Walsh. So we hope you will join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Well, thank you, folks. Thank you for coming here.